What's up, guys? What you're watching is a match from Roshak's 4v4 domination tournament. I performed pretty well, so I figured I'd throw this up as a background for the commentary I'm going to give. If you keep up with Roshak, you'll know how it turns out, but hopefully you can appreciate this gameplay anyway because it is competitive and it is a lot harder than regular gameplay, but nonetheless, I still perform pretty well. What I want to talk about is the perfect Gears of War game in my eyes, if there is to be one. And before you watch this, I'd recommend that you watch the dual comm I did with Slaughter because we both shared our opinions on the matter, and he has some really good points. Him and I are pretty like-minded. I will put the link in the description for that video, so you should really check it out. Go give it a like. For me, I've played all 4 Gears games a lot, so I have a good idea of what I want to see in a perfect Gears game from a competitive and a public standpoint, because those are two things that really matter in my eyes. Now, I'm not one of those hard-headed people that once I make up my mind, I stick by it permanently. I am open to persuasion, so your thoughts and opinions do matter, and if you disagree with something, feel free to post in the comments what you think, or if you want to add on, because I think the best way to come up with a good product is to have your opinion alongside other people's opinions, just for a more refined perspective. With that said, I'm not going to talk about campaign too much because I don't have much to say about it, but I guess I will say this. The first 3 games focus on Delta Squad, and then we got some new squads around Baird for the 4th game. I think it was Kilo Squad. I don't even know. I never completed this campaign for Judgment because I just don't care about their squad. I don't care about the characters, and I think what they need to do is focus again on Delta Squad, because I really feel like even if Baird was a popular character, the 4 of them together, there was more, it was easier to relate to them than it was to the new squad they showed you. So that's something I think they need to consider, because I don't know about how many of you cared about the characters they introduced in Judgment, but I just could not give them the time of day. So Gears of War 3 is going to be the baseline game for the perfect Gears game. And from this point on, I'm sorry if it gets messy, I'll try to structure it, but this is really just going to be word vomit at a point. What I mean by the baseline game is that if I don't mention something, I want you to assume it's exactly the way it was in Gears 3. So the idea here is that I'm building upon Gears 3. Some of you may have Judgment in mind, but I just want you to push Judgment aside and think about everything in terms of how it was in Gears 3. So you got to assume that everything is in, such as 16 shots for the shotgun if I don't mention it. Cog versus Locust is in, because I'm not going to mention Cog versus Cog, but Cog versus Locust is in. Even the active reloads are in just for now, and I'm going to tear apart the game or put things in depending on how I see fit. So let's go to Gears 1. What would I take from Gears 1? What really comes to mind is the dark kind of vibe the game had. So if you think of maps like Mansion, Clock Tower, Rooftops, Process, those were all maps that I felt are good indicators of what I'm trying to say, in the sense that it was dark. You could tell it was a horror, but it wasn't too over the top. And I think as the game progressed, in Gears 2, Gears 3, it just got too colorful for me. You have maps like Dry Dock and Sandbar, and suddenly you're running through a field of rainbows. And not that it's a big deal, but aesthetically, I think Gears of War 1 was a lot better because it really put you in the mood. So that's one thing I would take from Gears 1. Not much I'd take from Gears 2 because it just wasn't that great of a game, but there are 3 things that come to mind. The first is going to be the revive box. In Gears 3, if you remember, you have to be right up to somebody to revive them, and sometimes it screwed you over, which could be kind of annoying at times compared to Gears 2, Gears 1. I'd also take the TACCOM from Gears 2. I really liked it, how it was bubbly, it was informative. If somebody was down, you knew about it, and I think TACCOM is very important in a team-based game, so that's something I'd like to see added back. The third thing would be some of the maps. I played a lot of competitive Gears 2, and the maps really worked, I found, for some of them, such as Security and Avalanche. And the reason I bring up those 2 maps in particular is because they had environmental effects. Security had a switch, and in competitive, if you controlled that switch, it gave you access to an ink grenade if you wanted it, but you didn't have to hit it because it also opened up areas to other parts of the map, so it was really strategical. Same with Avalanche. If people were sitting back, the Avalanche comes down, and then boom, there's a boom shot on the map, and suddenly everybody is fighting for it. And that just really gets rid of campy gameplay. So those were 2 environmental effects that work, and that never bothered me. The maps are symmetrical, their spawns are not that big, and the maps weren't too big themselves, so I think those are 2 ideally good maps. I will say there were some bad environmental effects introduced into Gears series, so let's think Hail from Gears 2. That was so annoying, made you want to punch your television, so they got to really be careful with that. And even in Gauge with secret rooms in the library. Absolutely terrible idea. So if they are to introduce environmental effects, it has to be with some sort of purpose that will make gameplay more fun and less frustrating. So there's definitely a distinction there. I guess now we're moving to Gears Judgment, which is where the meat comes in. And first thing I'll say is stopping power and active reloads. Gone. That was a great idea. Weapon balance is going to be identical to how it is in Gouge, because I think the balance is down really, really well. And in terms of the weapons, I like how they changed the sawed-off. The retro doesn't even seem that overpowered to me anymore. All the weapons seem very good. Frags are also going to be gone, or not frags, frag plants, grenade plants. I just never really liked them, so that's also worth noting. Now, I know I said to make assumptions if I didn't mention things, but I do want to mention, what do you call it, verticality. I think verticality needs to go, and this is controversial, I think, so feel free to defend verticality if you think it's a good thing. Although it increases the flow of movement, I think that verticality just prolongs the game, since you can't get people at choke points, and that to me is very frustrating, especially being an execution player, and that just needs to go, because even if you have two people, it's hard to corner somebody. The second reason I think it needs to go is because it hurts map design. All the maps in Judgment except for Boneyard and Haven, in my eyes, are not that great a map. Security is not security. Streets is actually not too bad, but the maps are too big, and the reason being because if you add verticality, you need to add levels that are viable for full-on attack, full-on assaults, if you know what I'm saying. So you have these massive rooftops, then you have a massive bottom floor. It's just too much. Everything needs to be kind of leveled. Even maps like Azura, where you have a long way to go up, or Sandbar, you had to run up there and you could still corner people, no jumping off a cliff. So verticality is something that I definitely wanted to mention. I feel like the rifles should also have a reduction in clip size. I think they're a little too forgiving how they are. They're meant to be a support weapon, but you could literally use them alone how they are, although this is something I will admit I'm unsure of. So if you have a different view, please let me know. I would get rid of the hammer burst. I'm sorry, I don't like weapons that can be used effectively with mods. Classic hammer burst is the only hammer burst that I think should be in the game, and like I said, all the rifles I think need a slight debuff, not debuff, clip size reduction. I think it would also be nice if they could have a bit more recoil when blind firing, not when aiming. If you remember in Gears 3 beta, the retro could shoot straight, but then they changed that in the game, and it actually had quite a bit of kick. Too much kick, I'd say, for a Lancer and a Hammer Burst, but somewhere in between, a nice middle ground there would be really good for the weapons. Marksa does not make the cut for me because I think it can promote campy gameplay, and it makes the long shot less valuable of a weapon, I think, so it just doesn't deserve to be a starting weapon. I don't like the gameplay it promotes. Although it is difficult to use, I just think if full teams use it, it can be abused in my experience so far. I would introduce all the new power weapons, though, or weapons they added into Judgment. Particularly the Bushka, I think, would have 2 clips with 2 shots each for a total of 4 shots. Boom shot would be 2 shots as well. Mantle kick would be gone because I think Epic has made it clear that with latency issues, there are issues that are just not fixable, so I just don't want to see mantle kick in this game. I thought over-the-cover battles were really fun and whatnot. Another thing worth mentioning is Overrun doesn't make the cut in my game. Now, I think it's an outstanding game type, and I play it quite a lot, but the Gears community has made it very clear that they don't support it enough, and I know a lot of you are probably shaking your head right now thinking, no, that needs to say it's a good game type. You need to think of the investment that Epic has put into that game. They've ignored traditional multiplayer to the point where there's barely any content for it because Overrun needs specifically designed classes and maps, and half of our DLC doesn't even get used because of this, and Epic is not willing to make double the content. Mind you, I don't really blame them. I'm not sure if I'd want to either, but it can't belong. Even for survival, I don't think survival is better than Horde, and Horde is also it can also be played with regular traditional multiplayer maps, and Horde is something that had a big fan base, and I can see why. And I wouldn't change anything about Horde, but Horde definitely has to be in the game. People were left in the dark, and it deserves to be back. It's fun. I'm not sure how I'd improve it, to be honest with you, because it was just really good how it was. A couple mods for it would be cool, like only up against Locust drones, so you're just up against a shit ton of drones. I always imagine that as being a blast. Also, non-lethal grenades are the only grenades you can start with. I don't even know if I'd want ammo packs on the map, but basically, I think spots are a great grenade. So spots or smoke are the only grenades you could start with. I also had an idea to change the stim where it doesn't give you back health, but if you throw it on top of somebody who's down but not out, they can get back up. Once again, they don't get health. I think that would kind of promote teamwork and be cool in down but not out game types, which is every single mode except for free-for-all in my Perfect Gears game, because I think down but not out adds to the teamwork, and the beautiful executions that we know and love are going to be in there, because that really makes you feel like every kill you get is worth something, not kind of like COD where you just point, shoot, and get some points, because sometimes that's what it can feel like to me if I just see somebody fall over in Gears, so you don't pull off a head or get a nice body. And I guess now I'm going to go, I'm not going to talk too much about maps because I mentioned it before. I just think that the game needs to ship with a healthy amount of maps that are compatible with King of the Hill, which is going to be the game type of my choice instead of domination, and TDM and execution, and a bomb game type that desperately needs to be added based on the feedback the community's been getting. TDM is going to be exactly how it was in Gears 3, so if a teammate eats lives, you can at least have a nice last man stand and do your thing. I love that. And it's going to be divided into rounds. I think the spawning is a little better in Judgment than it is in Gears 3 just because spawn trapping was an issue. With King of the Hill, I would say that I like it. A couple changes to make it better. One, somebody always has to be in the hill to get points. And two, if your team is currently getting points and you die, you can't respawn until the hill's been broken. People wouldn't be sitting out for too long, but if a team's putting constant pressure on a hill and having a little trouble over time, they should be able to break it, because team setting up can be really, really frustrating. Like I said, bomb game type, people have been complaining for that for ages. I think I like execution the way it is. The loadouts are all going to be back. Another thing worth mentioning that I forgot now that I think about it is the speed of picking up weapons and changing weapons is going to be the same as it is in Judgment, because I think that really makes for a faster game. But I want to keep the D-pad for weapons because I like the TACCOM being on the bumper, and I kind of like how the grenades were in Gears 3. Some people think they're overpowered, but they were a power weapon, and you had to fight for it. Another thing worth mentioning is that the inks are going to be the way they are in Judgment. I don't think that the ink deserves to stun. That's just not really fun in my eyes, and that's not something I really liked in Gears 3. I don't have much time, so I guess the last thing I'll talk about is playlists. I'm sure I missed some things, but there cannot be an abundance of playlists. That was a huge problem for Gears of War Judgment. I think you do need quick and ranked. Now, I have a video in Gears 3 about quick and ranked if you want to run through that. I don't want to talk about that too much. But basically, the playlists there's not going to be only one DLC playlist for quick and ranked, and it's not going to filter out the game type. It's only going to give you the maps, and it's going to be random. And then you're going to have no VIP playlist or anything, just clean, quick, and ranked playlists. Ranked is going to have a lot more incentive. In my Gears game, it's going to have achievements, cool gamer pictures, and you get a hell of a lot more experience. And I think that way, if there's less playlists, the game will just have a better overall population. It'll be more fun. And this is really wrapping up fast, but I guess that's all I have time for. Let me know what you think, and that is my Perfect Gears game.